Alright, so Cloud9 versus Team Liquid Scrim was leaked earlier tonight, and the replay has already been taken off op.gg. So I was a little bit late to that, but I'm going to cover the YouTube video that somebody else uploaded of the replay real quick, hopefully before this video gets taken down too. And there's a couple things, a couple simple things in the lane phase and a couple things in the team fight, mid-game team fight phase I'd like to really cover. And the number one thing is obviously this is pretty rare, but this has happened to us once, and it's completely fucked us, like completely demolished our ability to play the game, and that's the surprise 2v1 team fights. Now it's a lot more common in super high elo, competitive play when you're talking about pros or challenger series teams and stuff like that. But at our level, it's still a possibility, obviously, because it's happened to us once. And because it's such a low possibility, it's not necessarily taking the risk of running the pro strategies where they do a uh, four-man stack, one-man defense, four-man stack, and push hard to get wards between the tier 2 and the inhib turrets to see who's coming into the top lane and who's coming into the bot lane. But in the event it does happen, and this this scrim shows it very well because Cloud9 is running Mundo on Cloud9 balls. In the event it does happen, it is imperative that Mundo gets the fuck out of lane because there is nothing that you can pick up in lane in a 2v1 comp against the Mundo or with the Mundo. Against really any comp. Even the short range comps like, Nautilus and Urgot, Mundo's just going to struggle for CS, you're going to struggle for experience, they're going to freeze on you, and you're going to lose out. So the smart thing to do is, if you're top side and you're on the red side, Mundo should head for double golems or raptors. In the event that I start to jungle on the top side, Mundo should come with me and we should double jungle, like they're doing on Team Liquid side, where Lulu and Gragas are both jungling together, clearing the camp so that they can both share XP. Of course, Lulu's not picking up any of the CS or the gold, but at least she's getting levels out of it. If I start on the bottom side or away from Mundo, Mundo should come into the top and either start taking Gromp, double golems, or raptors. Whichever one uh, you're more comfortable with, depending on what spell you chose level 1. If you chose W, with all the with the burning agony with all the AoE clear, it's obviously smarter to take the raptors because you can completely kill the 3 small ones very very quickly. But if you started with your Q, your cleaver, it's smarter to start on the Gromp or the double golems because there's fewer of them and your single target percent health damage will help a lot versus these relatively low numbers of high health targets. But once you do your first camp, if I am not on the side the jungle you're, Mundo needs to meet up with me. Alright, Mundo needs to meet up with me and we need to continue finishing out clearing the camps because Mundo absolutely needs that XP. Whereas if we did start on the same side, top side, for example, if I start top side jungle, then Mundo can just come back and we can go through the entire full clear. Now, the important thing here is that their Mundo, Cloud9 Balls, has teleported into the bot lane to hold the turret. But the problem with that is it takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of familiarity with playing a 2v1 to hold a turret effectively at level 2 after finishing your first camp. So I would not recommend that we try that strategy. I would recommend that we simplify it and just continue double jungling like Gragas and Lulu are doing. After clearing your first camp, even if you're low, just meet up with me as I walk up and we'll clear out the rest of the camps and try to get as much XP from jungle as possible. Because if you don't have the experience like Cloud9 Balls or Team Liquid Quas does in pulling off these 2v1 lanes, it's just going to end up worse for you. and it's just not gonna, be very effective. And the big thing about doing this double jungle, the big important thing is that after the first camp clear, if I'm on the opposite side and we meet, or if we've cleared sufficiently in the jungle to get to level 3, we can double down onto our lane that is in the 2v1 or 2v0 lane, and do a 4v1 push on the tower to get a fast tower. So instead of pulling a Cloud9 strategy here and sending our top laner into a 2v1, the top laner should stay with the jungler and move down to where the ADC and support is. In our case, probably still the bot lane while they've switched to the top lane. Take some jungle farm, and then really pressure that tower so we can take that tower as quickly as possible, and then shift our dual laners, our ADC and support, into the top lane to counter their ADC and support from taking a fast tower. That way we will be up one tower, they'll be down this entire tower safety, and then only after that Mundo will be safe to come down here because we still have a tier 2 tower, while their top laner will be at risk trying to farm up here because they're missing that tower already 5 minutes into the game, or whatever it ends up being. In their case, 4 minutes. The second thing I'd like to see more coming out of our bot lane duel this time is 6 minutes 45. Is buy timings. Okay, so once you hit an item breakpoint, for example, BF sword, pickaxe, a decent amount of breakpoint, I want the ADC and support, Brian and Hong, to communicate with each other. Because, and Cloud9 does this very aggressively, they're pulling a support roam when Thresh doesn't even have a Sightstone yet, which puts you at a disadvantage generally, especially for our playstyle, but it's still something that is smart to learn in a different situation. But anyways, I propose that the second buyback, so assuming the first buyback, Draven or Jinx, or whatever Han's playing at the time, gets the BF sword, and Thresh gets the Thresh should back with the ADC to get the Sightstone. But the second back, because you have that Sightstone, and that is the most important item in this for the support between the time of 0 to about 15 minutes, until team fights really start happening, you'll have another opportunity for a buyback on the third buyback, or on the third back for the ADC. On the second back, after you have your Sightstone and your ADC has their first item, their BF sword, and they're trying to build their second, preferably a pickaxe, and if you are winning lane or pressuring lane, you should take a note from Lemonation's book and just roam mid. Show some pressure mid. There's no reason to back and buy after your Sightstone purchase for the second back for your ADC, because there's not that much important stuff you can get. You can get a ruby crystal, maybe you can upgrade your relic shield to the tier 2, advanced item, but it's not that big of an upgrade. Whereas getting a roam in the mid could potentially really pay off for our team and start getting other lanes snowballing. Now, the big thing to remember about a support roam gank is that you have to be careful with your entrance. You can't go as aggressively as the jungler. Whoa. You can't go as aggressively as the jungler positioning this gank. For example, you generally don't want to go onto their side of the map behind the wall and try to get behind get just in front of the turret to pull a gank, because that puts you at a great risk, and you are actually really weak at this point because you haven't had your second buy back. Even the jungler generally is going to have more stats than you. So you have to be a little bit careful. It's not going to be as effective as a jungle gank, but it can still put on a lot of pressure and help the team out by putting map pressure with the support in an otherwise unimportant timing window where Thresh or Leona or Alistair doesn't really need a back and buy because there's no huge benefit in doing so. Now this one doesn't work. Thresh comes up, misses the hook, but even this kind of pressure helps Incarnation, their mid laner, control the mid lane wave, which is hugely vital against Azir. So even a failed gank by the support can alleviate pressure on the mid lane while allowing the jungler to still catch up in levels and XP. Especially because in this case, the jungler had the double jungle, so the jungler is going to be a little behind on XP. Now the third thing is, and I've been trying to say this for a while, it is not hugely important for Mundo to keep his tower. Like, Cloud9 gives up the bot lane, technically the top laner's tower on their side, Mundo's side, very, very early, at about 10 minutes. And it's not a big deal. We can let it go. Because now obviously we need to look at the enemy team comp. In this case it's a Lulu. Lulu's not a super snowball champion. She doesn't have incredible roam. Well, she has decent roam potential, but she doesn't have incredible kill potential, you know? We wouldn't want to pull this strategy against, say, a Riven, possibly a Irelia, possibly a Rumble, depending on how well they're doing in lane. But against a lot of other champions, especially the more common ones we're running into nowadays, it's not a hugely terrible idea. Because by eliminating this, let me get to the time. By eliminating this tower, Mundo can farm in relative safety. You put map pressure on their top laner. Their top laner now has to go other places to look for farm because it becomes incredibly risky pushing this far into enemy territory while the enemy still has this much map control. And if Mundo ends up losing his tower like that, you can start winning in CS just because you can control the waves. Max out your cleaver, last hit only with cleavers, and manage your waves. If you find that you need to let the wave reset or push a little bit forward in your side because the enemy minion line is getting low, feel free to go into the jungle and take part of the top side of the jungle. If we're on blue side, feel free to take, of course, if the map was flipped and the 2v1 had never happened, if we're on blue side, feel free to take the Gromp. The max cleaver kills Gromp incredibly fast because of the percent health damage. Gromp starts the game at like 1600 hit points and only goes up from there. So with your max cleaver, you're hitting it for like 300-400 hit points with every couple seconds with a cleaver. You can kill Gromp and get that huge gold bounty every time it comes up. Or if we're on red side, you can do the same to the double golems. The big golem dies incredibly fast to a cleaver max, and then you can maintain the freeze here for a long time and just keep on getting a CS advantage, money advantage, level advantage over the enemy top laner, which now has to scrounge for scrap somewhere else. So just being aware of our map pressure is something that we really need to take a look at. Our rotations are generally pretty good. pounds on top of his stuff. You know, we're getting a lot better about our rotations, knowing when we need to pressure turrets, knowing when we can take what turrets and what objectives we should fight over and what objectives we should let go. So now it becomes more of the strategic map control kind of thing that we should really work on. You know, the timing window for the support roam when the ADC gets his second buyback and Thresh already has Sightstone core item. The the uh, the Mundo farming and getting back, because this is a absolutely horrible matchup. Mundo does not do well against Lulu. Lulu's a lane bully. She has a lot of magic damage. She has a lot of CC. Like Mundo can't do much against Lulu. So so letting them take the tower early allows Mundo to get back into the game basically, even though he was and this is a even worse situation than anything we're likely to face because Mundo started a 2v1. He had to take a jungle camp, then he teleported down, wasn't able to get anything there, then got bullied out of the tower, lost his TP, and had to walk back. Like Mundo started really far behind, but just these strategies where we give up certain objectives and we manage the map into creep waves. Creep waves are huge, in particular, to claw back some advantages and get some of our get some power back on the map. Especially since Mundo is a very weak early game champion, we have to play strategically around that. Now the third thing here is their last team fight before the scrim ends. Now, I mean, this is a scrim. Generally, these guys will surrender FF somewhere in the mid game after like the first lost team fight. So there's only one good team fight to analyze, and I'll talk about it here. And the way they ran this team fight is actually very, very intelligent. Because if you look at the enemy team comp versus Cloud9's team comp, I'm gonna continue talking about this from Cloud9's perspective. Cloud9's team comp is very similar to ours. 2 carry, you know, AP mid, and a relatively strong ADC. Now, Kalista is not on the level of Draven or Jinx as far as hyper carry, but in this game, Kalista is 4, 2, and something. But so Kalista's definitely hit those item spikes, and she's a very powerful ADC for this point in the game. On the other hand, Team Liquid runs one of the most common comps we run up against, and one of the ones I feel like that give us the most trouble, and that is the heavy dive comp. We are going to single out one person and completely neutralize them during a fight. They have the Urgot, the Gragas, the Azir, the Nautilus, and to a lesser extent the Lulu. The Lulu's more of a support for the hypercarry Azir with the with the movement speed, mobility, shields, help picks, all that kind of stuff. But she definitely also does help in getting picks, you know, with speeding up your frontliners. And the last team fight / the first team fight starts at about 22 minutes. I want to say it's about 22:20. That's 21:20. Alright, so this is a fight over Dragon. And Cloud9 goes for aggressive Dragon play. And normally this does not look like a good idea. Alright. The heavy dive, incredibly strong mid-game comp. Lulu has that huge mid-game power spike. Azir has a huge mid-game power spike. Gragas has a great mid-game power spike. You know, the 2 item power spikes are coming into play. And though Cloud9's team comp matches up very well, it doesn't have the same kind of scrapping potential at 20 minutes. It scales a lot better into late game like our comps usually do. So this is a high risk play, and you want to look at strategically how beautiful this fight plays out. And I'll get to this. I'll come back to this in a bit. But Mundo TP's down for the flank, as is the correct answer to do. He's TPing down to this ward right here for the flank. And Cloud9 get the dragon. Now this fight looks like it starts off pretty freaking awful. Alright, Meteos misses the Sichuani OT. Lemon gets a hook, but it doesn't end up with any real damage because it's immediately cleansed out. Not cleansed out, Mikhail's crucibled out. And there's no damage lands on it because nobody's in position. But this is the beauty of it. Alright, so Mundo's getting in on a flank. And even though this wall is present here, Mundo is still getting good pressure with cleavers. So Mundo doesn't even necessarily have to rush in here 4v1 to be effective. Mundo is still controlling the zone. And I'll come back to this team fight in a little bit. But notice how they position their 2-carry team. Alright, so they have 2 sources of damage and 3 supports, and it's very important to position even in a linear danger area where you might be enclosed far away from each other. They understand this because their win condition involves these 2 damage dealers going up against a 5-man comp that just wants to come straight at you and completely demolish 1 carry. So you can't be stacking up. When they started the dragon, Incarnation and Sneaky were both here helping with the dragon. But as soon as these guys showed up on the ward, notice how Incarnation moved out into this blue buff sort of zone area to absolutely separate himself from Sneaky so that their 2 relatively strong carries cannot be both targeted at once. This closes out the opportunity that Team Liquid has to get a good engage, along with the lack of vision control over this general area, not knowing where the carries are. But this ultimately saves him in the end. Alright, so whiffed OT on Sejuani, and I'm going to slow this down. And a hook that gets Mikhail's. Now, look at how they maintain their positioning with their carries. Wait for it. Look at how they're maintaining their positioning with their carries. The second that they see there might be an engage or counter engage, because Sejuani has lost her ult, Thresh's hook is on cooldown, and Thresh's box has been dropped, they immediately start splitting again, because now they know it's going to be time for the counter engage. So Sneaky starts moving down bot, and Incarnation, their mid laner, starts moving into the jungle again. Notice how they're keeping the more mobile carry in the wider open area that gives advantages to mobility and dodging and juking, while they're keeping the more AoE focused, less mobile carry in a small contained area with a small inlet that forces a choke if they want to engage. So now they have 2 options on Team Liquid. Team Liquid wants to take this fight. They've gotten greedy. And they think they can win this fight. And chances are they should be able to win this fight. This is a good fight to be taking. But it's the way that Cloud9 plays this that completely changes how it plays. Alright. Mundo is still up here throwing cleavers and trying to figure out the exact situation on which way Team Liquid's going to go before doing his chase away and peel. And in this case, they decide to go for Sneaky. And because they're going for Sneaky, you can see that he gets immediately annihilated. Like, he does no damage this fight. But because Incarnation was off to the left, completely away from the other carry, they're able to save one of their carries. And the most important part is how this fight continues to play out by taking advantage of post-initiation positioning, something that we should be more practiced on because this is something that I almost never see us do in games. All right, once the engage comes, Sneaky knows that they have dropped quite a few cooldowns. Xpecial is going to drop OT. They've dropped Righteous Glory. Gragas is going to drop OT. Like, they're going to use a lot of cooldowns on Sneaky, so they feel committed psychologically. They're going to go for Sneaky. So what Sneaky does is, instead of doing damage, he baits them backwards, further into that linear danger area, forcing Team Liquid to pursue, to greed for the kill, which is smart, because Sneaky knows he's not going to do any damage being here. The difference between getting 2 or 3 auto attacks off before being dead, or luring the entire team into a much better AoE wombo area to close in. Sneaky makes the right play and sacrifices himself so that the team can do more damage. Again, it's not always about the carry doing the damage. Sometimes it's about the carry being the bait and playing the map correctly. Alright, so Sneaky, by running backwards, forces Team Liquid to chase after him by moving further into the river. And because of this, now Mundo is running completely at the back line, doing normal Mundo things. You know, it's more or less what our Mundo has been doing the last couple games, and it's not really mechanically difficult. It's not that much decisions you make. You turn on your Burning Agni and you just run around in the back line being confused and screaming Mundo. But because of this pocket, now they have a double flank. They pulled it back. So instead of the fight starting here and having ADC support here and AP carry jungler here and a Mundo coming in here, they have a double flank, which causes a lot more wombo damage from their AP carry. Sometimes during a fight, you have to evaluate what the fight is going to end up like, and truthfully how much damage you can do, and just look at the strategic map positioning and what kind of advantages we can pull from that. By pulling everyone into this circle, Mundo is now zoning out Nautilus, who has decided that he no longer wants to be here, and he will be zoning out Lulu. And the reason I propose this is because Cloud9 uses a very similar strategy to what we use right now. They have one carry and one bodyguard, another carry and another bodyguard. The only difference from what we do right now and what we really need to learn from this is the separation. How far apart their carries are, and how they're working the positioning to their advantage. If we try to find a fight, we need to be able to play the map correctly, like this. And because we run a very similar comp of a AD carry that will completely shred even tanks if you let them auto attack for long enough, and a extremely high burst AoE mage, we can actually follow this strategy to the letter and become much more effective in our team fighting. So in summary, in 2v1 situations, when I'm not on the top side, Mundo farm a solo camp and a meet me in the jungle and we'll dual jungle. Or farm one camp by yourself and a meet me in the jungle, we'll dual jungle. In the situation where I do start topside, just meet me in the jungle and we'll dual jungle from the start, so neither of us has to lose as many hit points. The second thing is, in the case of a 2v1, after we're done dual jungling, 4-man bot, force a turret as quickly as possible so that we can relieve our dual laners, our ADC and support, to be able to rotate to the top lane so that they can meet up with the other team's dual laners and defend our tower so we can gain the tower advantage. Third is study how to freeze lanes as Mundo. And as a team, we should not be worried if Mundo loses his tower, because Mundo becomes more powerful by losing that tower. Because now Mundo, who doesn't have that much threat in the laning phase in the first place, now gets to add the threat of map pressure, making him a more threatening package, so that we can get the advantage in the lane that Mundo would normally lose against. And the fourth is separate our carries. There's too many times where both our carries get killed by the exact same wombo spell. And that completely destroys us. We only have 2 carries. Now, granted, they're usually 2 hyper carries, but we still need at least one of you alive and know when you're gonna die. If you're going to die, know that instead of doing damage, it might be smarter for you to put down CC or put down or move your positioning so that the rest of the team can get a better fight out of it.